Yeah,
Thank
I mean,
thank
I
you all.
think, you know, Pittsburgh's coming off an emotional win versus Carolina at home. And they followed it up again tonight, just handling business by beating Virginia at home. Like, I think you got to give Pittsburgh credit. Like, forget what Virginia didn't do. How about what Pittsburgh did do? They've won two high level games going into the season. And I've talked about this before. Jeff Capel was on the hot seat, right? And everyone was like, oh, the Pittsburgh job's coming open. And he's able to block all that out and put us. I mean, what are they in the ACC right now? Are they undefeated?
Undefeated.
Undefeated, right?
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
just to block that out, get his team focused and playing the right way. Jamarius Burton started his career at Wichita State, transferred to Texas Tech. Now he's at Pittsburgh. I mean, he's not only a high level player, he's a high character kid. Recruited him a little bit when I was at UMass. I never forget, I walked into his living room and he had on his living room wall every single school that was recruiting him and like facts about schools like pinned up on his wall in his living room. And it's just like shows you like this kid's all about business. Like he's all about making the right decision. And to see it all coming together for him, those are the kind of guys you root for. But man, tip your hat. It's not what Virginia didn't do. Tip your hat to Pittsburgh, man. They're playing well. They've blocked out the distractions and Coach Capel, man, kudos to you.
And they still don't have the guy that we all thought was going to be their best player coming into the season, John Hewlett.
Yeah.
He hasn't been playing. I think he played the first, I want to say it was the first 7 games of the season, and then he hasn't really been back. Um, College basketball is better when Pitt is good, right? Like I grew up on Big East basketball. Right? I grew up watching the Brandon Knight teams go to war with UConn. I grew up watching those teams play Villanova. One of the best memories I have of being a college basketball fan was the Pitt Villanova Elite Eight game back in 2009. Like, you remember that unbelievable
Yeah.
game?
Yeah.
When Pitt's good, that fan base is loud, it's rowdy, that building is packed. It's one of the best home court environments you can get. So I'm just glad that they're back. Like I'm just glad that there's a place like we can talk about Pitt Panther basketball and be able to have good things to say instead of making fun of the program or making fun of Kevin Stallings or whatever we're normally doing.
Or who's the
Uh,
next head coach? Oh, who's
yeah,
who's
yeah.
who's the
Like,
next guy to get
who's
the
the
Pitt
fit
job?
there? Who
Oh,
turns it
here we
around?
go. Here we go.
Turns out
No,
it's Jeff Capel. Like, and
exactly.
and the thing about it is, like, I don't think this is a fluke either, right? I know they had a rough start to the season. They lost 3 of their first 4, but they got dudes, right? And so much of winning at this level comes down to whether or not you have the talent to win at this level. And Jeff Capel's got dudes, and he's had dudes in his program before. Problem was 3 years ago, it completely blew up because there was team chemistry stuff that just didn't work. Maybe they need to take bus rides in the snow with you, McCall. I don't know, but they have guys that are talented enough to go and win games at the ACC level. They've now beaten North Carolina and Virginia back to back. Like, we can't, it's not a fluke. We can't pretend that it's just like not happening anymore. Like, Pitt basketball is back, baby. I'm
But
here
it
for it.
also but it also takes a head coach time, right? I mean,
Mhm.
Coach Capel has been a head coach at Oklahoma. He's been at VCU. Like he knows what he's doing. He's coaching the NCAA tournament. He takes over a place where, when he took it over, it wasn't in a very good place at all. He's got to figure it out a little bit. Like, who are the guys that I can coach? Who are the guys that are the right fit for this program? How can we get it right in the locker room? And that's what he's done. And that's you see what they're doing right now.
Mhm.
So they've now knocked off North Carolina, UVA, Syracuse as well, in ACC play. Where do you fit this team in when it comes to the rest of the ACC?
Well, are we calling Syracuse a good win now?
I'm just saying ACC wise.
No, I got you. I still think, man, I don't know. I still think the ACC kind of runs through Miami,
And
right?
they beat NC State as well.
Yeah, I still
Continue.
think that I think the ACC runs through Miami this year. But seeing, and it's hard to know with Duke, right? Because Jeremy Roach has been dealing with this, like I think it's a sprained toe or like turf toe or something like that. He's got a toe injury that's bothering him. And without him on the floor, it kind of changes who Duke is. He's really their only point guard. And their freshmen are just like, they're still kind of getting up to speed to where they need to be. Um, but I think Miami's the best team in the league. But after seeing this, like if you beat North Carolina and Virginia, you just beat 2 of the 4 teams that you're going to be competing with for ACC regular season title, right? They're sitting at 4-0.
That's
You
exactly
can't
right.
ignore it.
That's exactly right. That's exactly. I mean, I don't think the ACC by any means is great this year. right? Especially with, the struggles that Carolina has had. I think, Virginia will be fine. They'll figure it out. I think there's a bunch of teams right there in the middle that you're kind of like, okay, who's going to rise to the top as they move forward here? Is it going to be Virginia Tech? Is it going to be Wake Forest? Like, who's going to take a jump as we move towards the end of January and the beginning of February and separate themselves a little bit from the pack? But I think Pittsburgh could be there. I think they got to win some more games. They can't get too high right now because they just beat Carolina and Carolina and Virginia. They've got to come back down to earth, get back to work. And who's the next? All right, we've done this. We're undefeated up to this point, but who's next? We got to focus on who's next. Who do we got next? Who do we got next? So, but it'll be interesting. I just don't see there's much separation in that middle yet. And I think that's why, late January and early February is so important for college basketball.
You know what's really bad for the league as a whole? I'm sorry. I want to make one.
No, take it.
Florida State had an awful start to the season because they were so injured. When you look at the metrics, when you look at the KenPom numbers, when you look at the net, none of that stuff gets taken into account.
No.
Like the injuries, the pieces you were missing, the struggles you had at the start of the year. Same thing with Boston College, right? Like Boston College is the guy that Randolph Childress and Terrence Oglesby got onto this show for our ACC preview and hyped up. They were missing a bunch of key guys when they lost to New Hampshire and they lost to Maine. They took some bad losses early in the season. The numbers aren't going to matter there, right? If they get into the NCAA tournament picture, then that's something that the committee will take into account. But it doesn't take into account when it comes to the metrics. And what that's going to do is drag down all of those programs that they play, right? Florida State's got awful metrics. They just, whenever they beat somebody, it's going to torpedo their resume. Same thing with Boston College. And I guess same thing with Louisville, but Louisville's just got no excuses. They just suck. Although they almost beat Syracuse tonight.